Welcome to this class on global business. Now let's start by an introduction to international business. For a start, it's not new. Businesses and nations have conducted trade across national boundaries for centuries, probably millennia. There's always been some sort of trade going on, from the Silk Road to China to all sorts of products being traded over the years. So international business is not new. Perhaps what is new is the volume of trade and the methods we use. In addition to that, we're more aware of it. So we think that it is a modern phenomenon. But in fact, in the past, we had ships that sailed around the world trading. We had expeditions to different countries. We had all sorts of communications. And unfortunately, a lot of it was to do with war and fighting and looting and all that sort of thing as well. But we can categorize it all under trade. Let's just do that. It's simplest to do. And say, in the past, there was a lot of contact between countries for whatever reason. And we did trade. Now, lured by the prospects of large markets or indeed the sources of raw materials, businesses have traded with other parts of the world. It's always been the case that if a country could produce something cheaper than others, it will try to trade it and get something in return that perhaps it finds difficult. That's the nature of trade. So we sent out merchants one way carrying products that was made domestically, and they come back with products that was made elsewhere, but we would find difficult to make. So that was the simple nature of trade. As we'll see later, global business and global industry are different, but we'll talk about that as we go through the class. Now, we can start analysing this using the Ansoff matrix. It's an easy way to get into the material. So if you remember from marketing, the Ansoff matrix was something of this nature. So we just need to fill out inside the squares under the heading existing product, new products, and alongside existing markets and new markets. And if we look at that, then we can see that what is filled out already in slightly bluish colour, under existing products and existing markets, we're looking for greater depth of trade, a greater hold on the market, so as to secure long-run sales. But also with existing markets, there is an opportunity to develop new products, perhaps innovate the product and take it overseas. But also there are new markets, and new markets means the existing market for the product has been extended. It's been developed. So new markets is like being able to sell more domestically, except it's now overseas, of course, but it's simply selling more. It's a market development. And with new markets, there may be some degree of diversification. It may be that companies are able to sell their product, but they can see something that goes with it, something that's perhaps possible to do that would not be so attractive domestically, that would satisfy the overseas market. So there are opportunities in trade. And the Ansoff matrix makes it easy for us to categorize that. Now, the international business, well, for a start, it's almost obvious to say that they are trying to sell overseas and market the product, and hence develop the market for their particular product. They're trying to sell more. They're trying to get perhaps economies of scale domestically, economies due to size, better production, better distribution channels. So they're trying to develop the whole production and distribution chain. Existing products are sold in new markets, and that's an advantage because the existing products have been designed and refined. Issues about the product which were not acceptable to the customers, these issues could have been addressed and fixed. So it means going into the overseas markets, the products are more acceptable. All the problems have been ironed out before they got there. The domestic customers have fed back their comments, their suggestions, their criticisms. It's all been taken on board. The product has been refined, and now it's in a position to be delivered overseas. So it's in a better position, and that makes it easier to sell overseas. It's appealing because market penetration is difficult in saturated markets. When markets are full, when there's a lot of products in the markets and customers have plenty of choice, it's difficult to get into that market. But if you've got a product that's already been refined and developed and thought about in the context of that market, then part of the problem has been addressed before you even get there. Before the product arrives, it's been designed to be delivered in that market. It is aimed at those customers. Product development is costly. So if it's developed for the domestic market and it's working in the domestic market, then the chances are it's going to work in the overseas market. So having had it criticised and developed domestically, it's in a position to be delivered overseas. And one of the reasons why all of this is necessary is because diversification is risky. Changing the product is risky. Certainly, if the product has been refined domestically, the last thing the producer wants to do is to change the design, to diversify the product in any way. It's been refined for the domestic market, so that's fixed. Now, if it can go in that state to the other market, the international market, the overseas market, then the development cost has been saved as well. So that they don't want to unnecessarily diversify the product, because diversification is risky. It could go wrong. So why enter overseas markets? Well, the reasons for entering overseas markets can be categorized into push and pull factors. We often use this term in business. We talk about push and pull factors in many areas. So we'll get used to it. A push factor is something making the company go to the international market. A pull factor is something in the international market that's attracting the company, pulling it in. Excuse me. Let's look at push factors. Well, saturation in the domestic market, that's a push factor. If the company has reached its limit domestically, it can't sell anymore. It's reached its maximum. Then if it wants to grow further, it's going to have to export. It's going to have to enter overseas markets. So that's a push factor, something pushing the company to do it. There may be economic difficulty in the domestic markets. Maybe customers can't afford to buy it because rising unemployment or higher interest rates or something is causing the domestic market to slow down and they're not buying as much. So the company is now facing a bleak period, falling sales. So they need to be in another market where if one market starts to fall, perhaps the other one will save it. The other one doesn't fall necessarily at the same time. It might do, but if it doesn't, they're partly hedged against that problem. If the product is near the end of its product life cycle at home, if customers are getting pretty much fed up with the product and it's starting to look old-fashioned and stale, and domestic buyers are looking for something new and more exciting, then rather than immediately redesign a new product, perhaps take the existing product and launch it elsewhere. It's already been developed, it's already been refined, so make it available elsewhere. That's a possibility. And in the meantime, perhaps put some resources into developing a totally new product for the domestic market. Start again. But the existing product could then go to other markets where there would be a demand, perhaps. It could also be the case that the company has got excess capacity. Perhaps some of the machinery are standing idle some of the time. They're designed to produce a certain amount. The domestic market is not purchasing that much. So they have an incentive to go overseas to try and make sales so that they're able to use their equipment 100% of the time. Not perhaps 50 or 60% of the time or whatever it is. So if they've got excess capacity, that might also push them to look for markets elsewhere. And of course, risk diversification. Businesses don't like risk, although businesses take risk. That's why they enjoy getting a profit. Profit is the return on risk taking. So at the same time, if companies can avoid the risk, they will do everything they can to try and avoid it, cut out the risk. Well, if the domestic market is having problems, then they pick another market overseas, which may not have the same problems. If you pick several markets overseas, some of them will be booming sometimes and others will be depressed. On the average, hopefully, the company will be okay. The company will ride out the problem. So some markets might be up, some markets might be down, some countries may be booming, some countries may be in a slump or entering a recession. But on the average, hopefully, the company will be making more sales. So risk diversification is an issue to consider. It's a push factor. There are also pull factors, factors that pull companies into international trade. The attraction of the overseas markets. Perhaps overseas markets are seen as vibrant and innovative and changing, and so if they're able to get into that market, they'll get lots of valuable feedback. They will get experience of handling that type of customer. There's a lot of attractions for companies to enter overseas markets and get the experience of doing it. There will be certainly increased sales. They'll have the sales domestically and they will have the sales overseas. So clearly there will be increased sales. They'll have greater economies of scale. Economies of scale means economies of size. An economy of scale is when a company can have a machine made specifically for them to do a particular task. Small companies can't afford that. But as companies get bigger, they can afford specialist machines and specialist workers. So as the company grows, because of now it's got its domestic market and it's got its international markets, so it's selling a lot more, they can therefore have specialist machinery designed for them, which will improve their productivity, reduce their average costs. They can have specialist workers, specially trained. So they have economies of scale, economies of size. It also extends the product life cycle. If they're selling something domestically and it's starting to dip, sales are starting to go down, customers are getting a little wary and fed up, and they're not quite looking at the product in the same way. It's old-fashioned. Then move the product overseas to a market where it hasn't been before, because customers there will see it as a novelty. It's a new product to them. So it's extending the product life cycle. And also, there you can exploit the competitive advantage that if it's selling domestically, then there are more resources to enter the foreign markets. The company will have perhaps more reserves and can afford to go into the foreign markets and can afford within the foreign market to have a launch, be able to launch the product with perhaps a sale, sell it cheaply to get a name established, get the customers to know the name and know the functionality and know the quality of the product. So they're able to exploit their advantages. Some of their advantages could be competitive. They're able to now compete with others in the domestic market and overseas because they have a presence in both. And they're able to see that as an extension of their business. Their business has just grown. It's grown now into 2 countries or 3 countries. Could also be just the case that the owners of the company have personal ambition. They want to be seen to be in international trade. It looks good if the company says it's trading in, let's say, the UK and trading in America or trading in South Africa or in India or wherever. It's trading someplace else. It looks good. It looks good. It looks good on the management. It looks good on the owners. This is a vibrant company. It's a very attractive company. So it looks good. That could be a reason. Now, how to choose which overseas markets to enter? Well, look at the size of the market. Clearly, they want to have a good size to the market, and not just a good size, but there must have income in the market. There can be countries that have got many people, but the people are very poor, perhaps can't afford the product, which means the company can't sell the product. So it's not just looking at the population, it's looking at the income. Perhaps we should refine that even further and say we're talking about per capita income, the average income per head of the population. Perhaps that's a good metric instead of just saying population and income. So we can talk about that in seminars and see where we get to with that one. Also, the economic factors, the state of the economy. There's no point in moving to a country that's in recession or in depression. Where a country that's suffering badly from recession, let's say, or has got a long history of bad management, labour relations, or the government is not very stable, or the government has high rates of taxes or whatever. It's the overall state of the economy has to be taken into account and has to be matched against what the company expects and what they know. There are also cultural and linguistic factors. Generally speaking, companies prefer countries that are a bit similar to themselves, perhaps similar with language. If they, say, use English as their language, they would like to move to a country where a significant number of the population speak English. That would mean that they're able to find workers easier to deal with, easier to get on, better communications in employment, and easier to understand the company philosophy or the company direction, or its communications is better. So it's easier to know what's happening in the country as well, because the news would be in English and government policy would be easily understood. Perhaps to have a good media section. Newspapers carry articles about government proposals. So they know exactly what the government there is doing or proposing, or taxation or whatever. It's good to have that in the same language. Of course, if it's not, then employ interpreters. It's always the case, but perhaps better if the managers can understand it directly. It's also important to have political stability before they move. No one wants to move to a country that's unstable, where there could be fighting on the streets, or bombings or shootings or whatever, assassinations, and we see it all the time on the news. And then you have to think, would I want to live in a country like that? Would I want to move there with my company? And if you're a key worker and the company needs you, you might think, well, I'm not moving. It's too dangerous, or it's too volatile. The country is up in the air. It's the government is making strange decisions and so on. So political stability is also very important. There are also technological factors. Technological factor. To what extent is technology accepted in the country? To what extent is the country developing a technological base? To what extent are the workers capable of employment in a modern industrial setting? Now, this applies to all countries, not just potential companies, or countries, I should say, overseas. It applies domestically. It applies here in the UK. When companies are setting up in different areas, they have to look at the area and think, are the population here capable of working these machines, or are they capable of doing the tasks? So one area in this country may not get the investment, might get different types of investment, and perhaps other types might go to some other area. So that can happen internationally as well. I mentioned here the one telltale sign that many companies seem to suggest excuse me, is the number of STEM graduates. STEM is it just simply means science, technology, engineering, mathematics. When universities are turning out a lot of science, technology, engineering, or mathematics students, excuse me, when they're turning out a lot of those, then industry likes it, because they're able to get the technologists, they're able to get the workers who are problem solving, who are self-sufficient, easy to train. So if it's a highly technical company, the chances are they're not going to want somebody who's graduated in fine art. Now you could say, well, that's wrong, that's prejudice. Maybe the person in fine art is eminently suitable. Maybe it's just down to prejudice. I don't know. But the evidence seems to suggest that companies do pick areas where there's a lot of STEM graduates. And in this country, here in the UK, when a company from overseas wants to settle here, the government always points out to the number of STEM graduates in that area. And if there are not enough, the government makes a pledge to increase the number of STEM graduates. Students may get their fees cheaper, or they may get allowances to study those subjects. And the companies may give them work or employment immediately. Even though they're students, they might still be working for the company, even as a student. Still go to lectures and go to university or colleges or whatever. They go there, but they're working for the company. And as soon as they finish their studies, they go and work for the company full time. And that often happens. So it is a major consideration. Now, there are constraints and difficulties in entering overseas markets. First of all, quite obviously, it's costly, it's expensive. Research has to be done, travel has to be undertaken, many trips, talking to agencies in that country, talking to the government perhaps, talking to agencies of the government as well as private agencies. Trying to see where the workforce is coming from. It's a costly business. So it takes a lot of resources. It also takes a lot of time. Time and resources go together to some extent. Excuse me. So time and resources do go together to some extent. Well, if that's the case, then we've got another issue. How long is it going to take before they can set up in another country? What sort of planning is going to be required, and how are they going to deal with it? And just the uncertainty of going there. What happens if? in the future there is a problem. There's a problem. A new government comes in and changes the rules. Or what if the labour force decide that they don't want to work in certain ways? Or what happens if something changes? There's market uncertainty. What if the customers don't like the product anymore? How easy is it to close the business in that overseas market? How easy is it to reconfigure the business, to set up doing something else? There's a lot of market uncertainty in going to a different country. And of course there's marketing costs. Selling domestically has to be done through marketing agencies and advertising and face-to-face, and a good marketing team who are able to take on the product and present the company and present the product to the market. But that has to be done in other countries. That's difficult. Perhaps done in different languages. That's difficult. Looking at the culture of those countries and how they vary and integrating that into the marketing plan, that's difficult as well. And there are cultural differences. People see products differently. In one country, a product might be fashionable. In another country, it's not. It's not seen as a nice product. There are cultural differences. We all differ across countries and we vary across the country. Here in the UK, I'm based in the Midlands in the UK. I came from London originally, but despite my accent, I was educated elsewhere. But in London, it's a different culture to here in the Midlands. Same country, same people, just different culture. And when we're talking about going across international boundaries, it's much more difficult. Now, of course, they could speak different languages, which is another complication. Not everybody speaks English. So they may be going to a country which speaks Portuguese or Spanish or French or German or Mandarin, Thai, whatever. They speak some other language, and that's a problem as well. Communicating and understanding each other efficiently and effectively could be difficult in other languages. There could also be trade barriers between countries. That if the company sets up in a different country, then to export the product from the base where it's produced out of that country to its market elsewhere, there might be trade barriers. There might be problems in moving it. So countries don't always have free trade between themselves. There may be tariffs to pay and quotas to abide by. And of course, every country has got its regulations and administrative procedures, how companies are run, what bureaucracy is required, what forms are required, what does it take to organise a business, and what are the regulations for employment and location and pollution, and how exactly is it organised. There are also political uncertainties. We see all the time on the news that countries that we think are nice and look great for holidays and so on, and suddenly there's a political upheaval. The politicians are fighting amongst themselves. They're all looking for power. And if you go there, there might be problems. And certainly if you're setting up your business there and you're there long term, it's almost inevitable you're going to hit problems. The workforce can't easily get to work. Excuse me. Or there's so many issues that political uncertainties can generate. Perhaps changes in the law which are not conducive to production in that country. We also got exchange rates and the problem of financing. Put the two together. Exchange rates, if you make a product in another country, then you want to get it back to where you are, to your market, you're going to have to go through the exchange rate. And the exchange rate does change. So there's an uncertainty caused by the exchange rate. So setting up in another country is not that attractive. It's another uncertainty that has to be factored in. And there is a problem of financing, that if you're setting up overseas, the bankers overseas don't know you, and the bankers where you're coming from don't want to invest in another country. That's where their money is going to go. So there is a problem of financing as well. Yet another issue. And there are working capital problems as a consequence, making sure you've got enough to keep the business running, to be able to pay the employees, to pay for distribution and logistics and raw materials and the stores, and pay for everything and make a profit. That's difficult. Cost of insurance. Some countries don't have a very developed insurance system, and some countries that have it, it's very costly. But again, it would be needed because there's so many uncertainties in investing overseas. And how exactly will the product be distributed? By road, by rail, by plane, by boat? How is it distributed? What's the cost of doing that? How easy will it be to do it? What are the issues associated? We normally think of overseas trade in terms of exporting and importing goods and services. That's the way we normally think about it. This involves transporting goods and selling them across national boundaries on a very simple level. Direct exporting implies that the domestic firm is actively involved in selling the goods abroad. So that's direct exporting. So exporting from a company in one country to perhaps the distribution centre in another country. It already has it established. Exporting it to the shop in the other country, in the extreme. So that's an ideal if that is done, but it's not often the case. Normally it goes into some sort of warehouse where it has to be got out after customs inspections and stored somewhere, and markets have to be found, and logistics has to be arranged, and distribution, and it's not as easy. Indirect exporting means that the marketing of goods is delegated to export agents, and the UK manufacturer concentrates on production. That can be done. There are specialist agents who will take this on board, and they'll have expert knowledge of particular markets, and they will work with that market, and they know exactly what to do. But of course, they have to be paid. So there is a cost to doing that. Exporting involves the movement of goods, is only one method of engaging in international trade. Excuse me. There are different ways we could look at international trade. We could see it as one company exporting its goods, or it could be one company dealing with export agents and other companies and going through a network to get its goods to the market. So it's not just a question of producing it, putting it on a ship or on a plane and moving it to another country and selling it. It's perhaps far more convoluted. Now, other methods of market entry, well, overseas products and or assembly, that's a possibility. Producing the good overseas, that might be a possibility. But then again, it needs production to be set up in that country, employees recruited and trained, and it has to abide by the culture of that country in terms of working conditions, legislation. It's a big learning curve for the business. International alliances and joint ventures, that has been used quite extensively. A company in one country, a company here in the UK will form an alliance with a company in Nigeria or in South Africa or wherever, some other country, and will work with them. It's a joint venture. They're doing it together. The two companies are working together to deal with this issue, to exploit the market, to get into the market and be successful. So The one company knows the market, it's located there. The other company knows the product and how to make it and keep up to date with it, the design, the manufacture, and so on. So between them, get together, that could work. Mergers and acquisitions, it sometimes happens across national boundaries. It's very similar to number 2 here, where you're working together, except in this case, they go all the way. They merge their companies. It's difficult. Again, it's difficult because it's information. It's knowing each other and trusting each other, and the histories of the companies would have to be similar. They'd have to know about each other, and it's not as easy as, again, a line on a slide would suggest. International franchising and licensing. This has been used quite extensively. It's often used even in education, where colleges and universities in one country will set up a course in another country and perhaps franchise it to another college, a college in situ in the other country. It's also the case that companies who have a particular product may go to a company in some other country and ask them to take on the marketing. So it's franchised. It's passed over to someone else. So these are a whole list of the advantages and disadvantages of international trade, global business. It's an important topic. It's worth bearing a lot of these issues in mind, and it's worth watching it a few times and making your own notes. So let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.